Hello and good morning. I am here to chat with you guys a little bit about the not so new but sort of new feature in Excel called X Lookup, which hopefully you guys have seen. But if you haven't seen it yet, it really is a neat tool. So I want to show you X Lookup and what it will do to maybe eventually take the place of the long-standing staple of Vlookup. So before we get into XLOOKUP, I'm going to quickly give you a refresher of VLOOKUP so you can see what makes XLOOKUP so incredibly cool. So for example here, I've got a list of data. This is a small data set of furniture sales. Okay, furniture sales. I've got the person that purchased it, the SKU of the item, and the name of the item here. So now this name of the item has been done with the VLOOKUP. So I'm going to delete that VLOOKUP. And I want to show you how to quickly do a VLOOKUP again, which I'm sure you already know how to do. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do with VLOOKUP is I want to touch on briefly the structure or the challenges, not even a challenge, but the things that can make VLOOKUP mildly inconvenient. And the one thing that makes VLOOKUP mildly inconvenient is that you're restricted due to the structure of the lookup table. So there's all these rules that go along with VLOOKUP when you set up a lookup table in no particular order because they're all equally important. Here are the things that you have to know. So if I'm looking up the value 294211 in this lookup table at the bottom here, okay, and here I'll spruce this up so you can see it a little. There you go. In this lookup table at the bottom here, if I'm looking that up, the first thing I know is that my table has to be structured in a way that the lookup values have to be in the first column of the table. And then all of the other data can be in any of the other columns, but they can't be in the first column. So this has to match here. So basically VLOOKUP is going to read left to right, top to bottom. A couple other rules that you have to follow in order for VLOOKUP to function. The numbers, if you're using numbers in your lookup values, need to be in ascending order, meaning smallest to largest, which they are here. Okay. If you are using words, aka strings or a string of data, then you need to use an exact match type, which I will show you that shortly. And you have to use breakpoints, not ranges. So for example, say you had numbers 1 through 10, you couldn't do this, right? That would be in Excel speak, that would be 1 minus 10. So you would actually have to list them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 10 going down. Okay. So to do the VLOOKUP, it's pretty easy. There's 3 required arguments plus an optional argument with VLOOKUP. So with VLOOKUP, it's going to be our lookup value first. So our lookup value here is going to be 294211. And the second argument, which we know very well, is the table array. So that's going to be all of this data, starting in the first column, going to the third. So including the item description and the item price. Okay. So lookup value, item description, item price, they're all part of this table. That'd be column 1, that'd be column 2, that'd be column 3. So then you have to tell VLOOKUP the column index number. The column index number is the number of the column that you want to have returned, the value of the column that you want to have returned. So in this particular case, it could be 2 or 3, depending on what we were looking up. But in this case, it is 2 because we want to return the item description here. So we're looking up the SKU number. We're then going to go over and find the matching corresponding description, and we're going to feed that back in. And the last thing we're going to do is the range lookup. Now, in this particular case, we're going to do an exact match, but let's talk about range lookup for a second. The range lookup for VLOOKUP is either a true or false statement. And what it means is either you're looking for the exact number or the exact value, and if you don't find it, return nothing. And that's what exact is. And if you choose approximate, it's going to basically round. So it'll find the number that's nearest to the number you're looking for. So in this particular case, the only thing we would want would be an exact match because we don't want to return anything close to 294211. We just want to return this specific SKU number. So when I close that off, that's going to give me a leather sectional. And if I want to fill that down, I'm going to make that absolute. So once I do that, boom, they're done. Okay. So now I could do this exact same thing again in order to determine price. And if I did it again to determine price, the only thing I would do differently is I'd still look up 294211. I would still take this entire table array, The one thing I do differently here is instead of taking the column index number of 2, which is the description, I would take the column index number of 3, which is the price. So I would return the price instead of the name. And I would still do a exact match. Now, if I do that, there we go. I get my $1,399. I could fill it down. It would do the rest of this for me. However, instead of doing this, I want to show you this super cool new feature called X Lookup. So now X Lookup can do anything that Vlookup can do, but it has some other stuff built into it that's very, very, very cool. So the first thing you'll see with the X Lookup function is it's got the very same first argument. So it says, hey, what am I looking up? So the first argument of X Lookup is the lookup value. So in this case, we're still looking up 294211. Okay. So then the next thing it says is, hey, what's my lookup array? Now this is where it diverges from VLOOKUP. And this is really the big cool thing that XLOOKUP does. Okay, so the big cool thing that XLOOKUP does is that it splits the table array into two parts, the lookup array and the return array. So it splits it into two parts. Now, why is that beneficial to you? It's beneficial to you because you're no longer constrained by having to have this very formally structured table. So the lookup values can be in one space and the return values can be somewhere else. And they don't have to even be left to right anymore. So remember, it has to read left to right, top to bottom. So first lookup value, then return, and it's left to right, top to bottom. You don't have to do that anymore. This value set could be anywhere. It could be over here. This value set could be anywhere. It can be down at the bottom somewhere. You can do whatever you want. It's still going to work. That's the beauty of splitting that table array into two different arguments. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to take my lookup value of 294211, and now it's going to say, hey, well, so what's my lookup array? So instead of selecting this entire table here, the lookup array here is going to be just the SKU numbers, which I should make absolute if I want to fill down. Now, the other sweet spot here is now I have the ability to choose my return array. Now, there's something really cool about return array. I'm not going to tell you what the second part is, but I'm going to show you the first part right now, and I'll tell you the second part when I go to my next example. So the first cool part is I'm just going to select my price points, not the stuff I don't need, in which now I'm going to make that absolute as well. Now, those are the only arguments that are required of the XLOOKUP function. But there's three other optional arguments within XLOOKUP that are so very cool. So the first thing is error handling is built in. So in the event that you don't find something, like it looks for the number 294211 and it's not there, instead of it throwing back an error, you can actually make it say something. So I can make it say item not found. Okay, so I've got built-in if error basically. So now after that, you have the ability to set your match type. Now remember, match type is actually optional with VLOOKUP, although it's probably a good idea to put it in. Match type is also optional with XLOOKUP, although again, it's most likely very good for you to put in. Notice though that it's more like the match type that is in the match function versus what's in VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP has true, false, that's it. With the match function, you have 0, -1, and 1. And with the XLOOKUP function, you have 0, -1, 1, and 2. So what does that mean exactly? Well, it's an exact match. It's an approximate match which will roll backwards. So basically an approximate match that rounds back, an approximate match that rounds forward, which is exactly what you could do with the match function, or you could do a wildcard match. So that's pretty neat. Maybe a subject for another video to check out. So for now, we'll just do exact match, no problem. So the last thing you have is an optional thing called search mode. And what search mode can do for you is it can look in your array and it's basically going to determine how it reads. Is it searching first to last, so top to bottom, bottom to top, ascending order or descending order, which is pretty nifty. So for example, if you had a data set that had multiple customer entries, so a customer bought multiple items, you could search for the most recent purchase using this mode. Now, in this particular case, we can just leave it blank. We don't necessarily need it. We can do first to last, which is fine. And when I do this, I'm going to get that 1,399. Now let's make sure that I got my absolute references right. I did. So now I can fill this down, and now we have it. Let's test something here. So what if I go in and delete this? When I deleted it, oh, hold on, let's put this back in. I threw an error here. The reason it threw an error here is because, so the error, hang on, let's delete 294211. So the error that it threw right here is because there was an if function here that was calculating the price and the total due. So here, let me backtrack again and I'll show you. So here's the price of $13.99, and there's a delivery here. So the delivery fee is $75. There was an if function here that was calculating, hey, if the delivery fee is yes, then tack on $75. So when I put the error handling in, it changes this numerical value to a string, and then it passed that string over into this argument or into this if statement. So it threw an error because you can't do that. Like you can't add numbers and words. So that's why it had that happen. But you'll see the error handling. So if I take that 294211 and delete it, you see it says item not found here. So it passed that item not found string into this if statement, which you can't do. It passed it here as well, but since there was no delivery fee, it went ahead and told you item not found. So just one of those little things that are fun when you're recording videos live, but you'll see that the error handling in the XLOOKUP definitely did work. So let's undo that and we'll take it there. So the next thing that's pretty nifty here that I want to show you is you now have the ability to actually return multiple values. So let me just do it real quick, and then I'll show you what makes this neat. So let me just very quickly do a lookup here. And we're going to do a lookup array here. We'll do our return array slightly different. This is the cool part. And look at that. So notice when I just did this XLOOKUP, instead of it just giving me back skew or leather sectional, it actually gave me the entire corresponding record. So now I want to show you how I did that, because that's one of the really great features about XLOOKUP. So one of the great features about XLOOKUP is its ability to return an array instead of just returning an individual value, which is really, really, really cool. So it's almost like an advanced filter, where advanced filtering can return an entire record of data instead of just an individual data observation or data point. XLOOKUP can do that too. And part of that is, well, it's not really because you can separate the table structure. It's really because you can select a return array that's more than one column, and you don't have that column index number anymore. Okay, so what I'll do is I want to look up my good dear friend and mentor, Professor Doc McGowan from Butler University here. And notice that it's capital M, capital G, but honestly, the capitalization doesn't matter here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my selector cell in C6. I'm going to do an equals XLOOKUP. So the first thing I want to do is do my lookup value of McGowan. And then I'm going to enter in my lookup array, which is going to be all of the names in my data that I've just calculated. So here's what I'm going to do that's slightly different here. My return array. So my return array here, instead of it being just the skew values, I could actually make it return a multi-column array. So instead of just rows here, I can actually take all of this. And as long as there's space up here, I can even go one over. I can go all the way over to here. And as long as you've got this structured correctly for your return values, let's just do item not found. And we'll do an exact match. As long as you have space up at the top, it will return all of these things combined, which is so cool. So if I go to my next dear friend, Peter Grossman, Dr. Peter Grossman, look at that. It'll do that as well. And my good friend Sang Vong, look at that. It'll return that as well. So the benefit of XLOOKUP has two things, and this is the takeaway that you need from this video. The benefit of XLOOKUP is, one, you are no longer tethered to that very left to right, top to bottom linear table structure of Vlookup. Additionally, XLOOKUP has error handling built in. And additionally, on top of that, it's got advanced search features and the ability to return multiple columns in an array all at once. So XLOOKUP, learn to love it. It's the wave of the future. Is your good friend Vlookup and HLOOKUP, are they going away? I don't think they're going away soon, but it's definitely a really great feature that will advance your skills in lookups in Excel. So I've got a lot more videos coming up. Hopefully you enjoyed this XLOOKUP video and you guys enjoyed not having to go to class today. I will talk to you soon.